we've completely redesigned our user security. With this design, it's now at a server level, and we add a new WiSys database under your SQL Server. This is where your user information will now be stored outside of the actual company. The setup and the design is actually inside of Agility Explorer, where it'll all be managed and maintained from one administrative area. There is no longer a separate company set up for device access, as this is all part of your unified user login, setup, and maintenance. So what we're going to take a look at here is first we're going to go under Files and Options, which is where security has been before, and it still is. And under the Files options, you're going to find two new menus. The first one is going to be the user login that we're going to take a look at. And here is where we will create users or manage and maintain users. And next we'll look at the company assignment. So now from within the user, you will actually assign company access that they're granted to. So maybe you have users that you want in a test company or in certain companies and others that you don't. You have complete control of that from one menu area. The next thing that we'll take a look at is your next menu option is the user access. So once we have them set up and we've got their company assignment, we go in to the user access and we now have roles where you can use one of our standard canned roles, you can create your own role, and you can set all those up under the role creation. And then we'll go down and take a look at the role assignment, and this is where you grant users the role assignment to those roles. And the last option that we'll take a look at is the actual option security, which allows you to grant the file options menu to users who aren't administrative users. So let's take a look at it. So let me pull up my screen here, and here is the Agility Explorer 566 menu. And as I said, the security setup is now under your file options still. And underneath of here, we have our two new menus, user login and user access. So let's open up user login. That's where I will go first. And here I am going to set up a new user. So under the user login, you can see that this is my main screen here. All around here, my main screen for my user setup, and I have two tabs, user definition and company access. Under the user definition, I can see the users that I have up and set up, and then the level. If they are for you, you would see administrator or user with their name and what types of applications they have access to. So do they have Agility Explorer, Agility Mobile? Are they a web user? Do I want to block this user? So I now have an easy way to check a box and block a user so that they can no longer get in the system until I check that box, uncheck that box. And then I have the ability to see if they are an Active Directory user right here. At the top here, you can see with the Agility Explorer, they are named users. So I can see how many named users I have, and then I can see how many users for the Agility web count that I'm actually using and who has those licenses. Down at the bottom, this is where I will choose new to set up a brand new employee. If I choose properties, I can look at my existing properties of that particular user, delete a user, and then I have another new feature here called Manage Access. This is really cool. We've had a lot of people ask for this. Under the Manage Access, I have the ability to check a box that says block all users and include or not administrators, which will block everyone from being able to get into the Agility system. And except for you, of course, it won't block you. So it will block everyone out. So if you need to do maintenance or anything like that, you check that box, and it will stay that way until you come back in here and you check the Restore Access to All. So new handy little feature there. I'm going to close this menu, and let's go set up a new employee. So I click my New button, and here I'm going to put in my username. If this is a Active Directory user, I can do a lookup here, or I can type in the name, and I can see my list of Active Directory users. I'm going to set up T-Berry here, and so I choose T-Berry, and I put in his full name. Now you'll notice down here that this tells me this is an Active Directory user. So that will give me the ability to grant him rights to Agility Explorer. I can grant rights to the Agility Mobile user. And because he's Active Directory, I can also grant rights to the Agility Web user. Now you'll notice when I chose the Agility Mobile user, here that used to be on a separate device tab. But when I choose the Agility Mobile user, I now have additional fields for the password, and that's the password for the handheld. So we have people who don't like to use the Active Directory password because it's long. This is the same place where you enter that. So I just simply put in my handheld password, and if I want them to allow changes to the device settings, those are your printers, works the same as it did before. I simply check that box, and that will allow them to change printers or to set up printers on the Agility Mobile for printers. If you do want them to use the Active Directory password, you just check the box. And then this is where you will grant their security level of user or administrator. And then there's this handy new little cool thing where you'll see in Agility, you can see just the picture, and this display picture comes from their user profile. So I simply can click my picture file. I can browse out to wherever my pictures are. I can grab a picture of my employee. So this must be what Tim looks like, and I simply click OK. And now you'll see that it added T-Berry here as a regular user, and these are the applications that he has, and he is part of Active Directory. My next step is then to go into Company Access. So I'm going to click on my Company Access tab here, and under Company Access, you can see these are my existing users, and I can see that these are the companies that each user has assigned. If I come down here to T-Berry, I'm going to click on T-Berry. And the companies that I have available that are WiSys companies are right here. I simply select the company that I want T-Berry to have access for, and I click the arrow, and he now has access to that particular company. Now on the drop-down list where Bob showed you earlier, he will only be able to see that particular company unless I add both of them. So now that he has this company, this does apply also to Agility Designer. So if you want somebody to only design in one company or another company, this will apply and control the Agility Designer application also, even for administrators. So it gives you complete control over who can get into what company. So once I have my user set up and I have my company set up, I click OK. I'm done in here. And my next step is to go in and set up the user access. So I'm back in my file options, and I'm going to click on user access. So I open up my user access menu, and here I can see just a basic screen of information giving me the user ID, the name, and the security level that they have. If I want to look at what any of those particular users have, I can do a properties. I can do a copy security where I copy one user to another. And here this is just opening up my user login, same thing from this menu. Processes. This is where outside of roles, just like in the old program, I can choose a process. So if this is an inventory person, I can come in here to inventory views, and I can assign them, or a person, specific individual applications outside of a role. This is very similar to the old security where you used to go into processes and you would choose the process and then pick the people who get that process. So let's go take a look at the new roles. On the left menu here, under roles, I'm going to choose that. And you can see that there are already roles set up here. And Agility Explorer comes with some standard roles that are out there and defined. If I click on the name here, it will collapse the roles so that I can see all the roles and open them up individually. So if I click on the arrow and I expand billing, these are all the applications that are in the billing role. And you can see over here that my members of the billing role are Kay Russell and Natalie Wren. So these are the applications that they will have access to under Agility Explorer because they're part of this role. And when I want to look at the next role, I simply come down here. I don't have any assignment, and I would assign those members. So let's go set up a new role. I'm going to click New Role, and this is, I'm just going to put your role. spell it right. I must be hungry. It must be lunchtime. Okay, your role, I'm going to give it a description. And then, does this belong, is this a role for Agility Explorer, Agility Mobile, and Agility Web? They're all controlled and can be controlled with roles now. So wherever I choose is the role where it's going to go. So I'm going to choose Agility Explorer. I click OK. And if I collapse my menus here, you'll see your role was added down here. So once I have my role added, you can see over here where I have my members assigned, I also have components. I click on my component tab. And here is where I can pick and choose what belongs in my component. So if I want to give them inventory transactions, I can simply click this, or I can click them individual by individual, or whichever, and it will add those roles under there. And once I have that done, I can come back to my members, and then I can click on the plus sign here. And when I click on plus, it's going to show me all of my users that are available. And now I can choose who gets that role. I click OK, and you'll see those users have been added here. If I wish to take someone out, I simply highlight who that person is, and now I have removed them from that role. Now, if they have roles that have been granted through processes, they'll have the combination of the role and the individual processes. You also have the ability over here to copy role membership to another member, and of course, then you can remove the focus from the user from all rows. So that makes it very easy. When I want to delete a role, or I can look at the properties, and then I come over here to Agility Mobile. I already have a couple set up. Agility Mobile doesn't have standard roles, but there's some set up. It works exactly the same. I can see who the users are, and you'll see here these are actually non-Active Directory users. So these are like my handhelds and my guns that would be assigned to Agility Mobile. And then under Agility Web, same thing. I create my roles, I assign the applications, and I set up the people for those particular roles. All right, the last option that we have here is the option security level, and that is when you look underneath your file options here, this can grant users, administrators have access to everything, but just like the old version, you can grant users access to these without being an administrator. So you could potentially just give them documents, or maybe you have a human resource person that you want user login, but you don't want them to get to the pick-pack setup or the WMS. And that's what the options allows you to control. So under the option security, I see my users who are not administrative, and let's say that I want Tim Berry to manage the documents for all of my customer service packing. So I can expose the documents, and I can give him rights to get to the documents area within the file option. So I simply check that, and he would be able to see that. All right, so that is our option security here. Now keep in mind too, the roles that I showed you, Bob's going to show you some layouts. Those same roles can apply to layouts for making them public and private and who you grant them to. So that is done and managed and maintained here, and Bob's going to show you that a little bit of it coming up next.